embarrassed by this. Because something that you're so outraged by is actually referred to in here.
No, it doesn't.
Oh my goodness.
It says here in Samuel, in 1 Samuel chapter 15 verse 3, it gives us a reason why they were killed. Do you remember the reason why those babies were killed in 1 Samuel 15? Why? You want me to educate you about your Bible? Yes? Go on, okay.
Chapter 15. Samuel said to Saul,
I am the one the Lord sent to anoint you king over his people Israel. So listen now to the message from the Lord. This is what the Lord Almighty says. I will punish the Amalekites for what they did to Israel when they waylaid them as they came up from Egypt. Now go, attack the Amalekites, and totally destroy everything that belongs to them. Do not spare them. Put to death men and women, children and infants, cattle and sheep, camels and donkeys.
Years before, when Samuel said to Saul this statement, so 400 years before, during the Exodus, these Amalekites killed a few of the Israelites, and this is vengeance. So this is basically taking revenge, God taking revenge for what these people, the Amalekites, did to the Israelites. Let me read the rest of it. And then he says,
it's all in your Quran.
Now go.
Wonderful. Everything he's
By the way, this is the Bible.
Is referred to
she knows
Muhammad in the Quran as just.
Is it because you're embarrassed? You don't want me to finish?
To read this
Lizzie,
to you. I can't
Lizzie,
wait
are
to
you
read
embarrassed
it to you.
or you want me to finish?
No, you are the one that's going to be so mega embarrassed by this. Because something that you're so outraged by is actually referred to in here.
No, it doesn't.
Oh my goodness.
Have respect for your Bible, if not me.
Yes.
Now go attack the Amalekites. There she goes
If you
again.
don't respect this, it means you don't respect your Quran.
Remember, don't complain.
And I'll put my hands up and I will admit, I'll be the first to admit, Shabir, that the violence in the Old Testament is much greater than the violence in the Quran. I'll be the first to admit that. It is much greater. It's horrendous violence. In Joshua chapter 6 verse 20, where Joshua commands the people to go in and kill all men, women, and children, even live animals. We don't see references like that in the Quran. Go in and kill all men, women, and children, even live animals. We don't see references like that in the Quran.
See, do not complain when I interrupt you then, because I can play your game as well.
Carry on.
Now go and attack the Amalekites. The next verse. So this, God gives a reason. The reason they were basically massacred in this next statement is because of the revenge that God wants to take against the people of Israel. So he says here, now go and attack the Amalekites and totally destroy all that belongs to them. Do not spare them. Put to death men and women, children and infants. See how they separate the children from the infants? Those who are 2 years and less, the infants. And then it goes on to say the cattle and the sheep and the camels and the donkeys. So do not even spare those domestic animals.
Okay,
all right? I haven't finished yet, Lizzie.
Animals.
So wait a minute. The Quran is referring to the
Allah speaking to Saul, okay? Who Hashim is actually talking to as well. Allah speaks to Saul.
Does it tell Saul to go and kill the children? No, it doesn't. Okay, go on.
He set out with
Sean.
his army.
You okay?
He said, verily Allah will be there.
Which verse is that you're reading?
This is 2249.
Sorry,
2249.
Okay, Surah Al-Baqarah.
Baqarah.
Okay.
Go on, read it. Show us the killing of children in the Quran, please.
Okay, no, the killing's not there, but...
Oh! Wasn't that the whole topic?
No, the killing's not there, but...
Wasn't that the whole topic? That was the whole topic.
But it's
I think it's finished already.
It's the same war, isn't it? It's the same war.
No, it's not the same.
Saul,
It's not the same, sorry. Nice try, but
by
you missed
Allah's
that.
leave. Okay, how often a small group overcame a mighty by Allah's leave. So actually, Saul confronting the Amalekites, that's just by Allah's leave, isn't it? It's in this.
Where is the killing of babies?
Even though it doesn't say about killing of babies,
Of course
we
not.
know
It
doesn't say.
that Muhammad
Of course
burned
not.
the Torah in which you find the killing of babies. So to get so outraged
That's a bad
by this,
argument.
Hashim
I'm sorry
is
to say.
actually undermining his own Quran.
Shall we
And
read
showing
what
that Islam is
249
false.
says? Because she took it out of context. Let's read what Surah Al-Baqarah 249 says. And when Saul went forth with the soldiers, he said, indeed, Allah will be testing you with the river.
Yes, so Allah is sending him, isn't he?
Can I finish?
Allah is sending
You
him
didn't read the whole verse.
Why
I'm
on earth?
finishing it for
Why
you.
would they be going? Allah is sending them. Allah is
Calm down. Calm down.
Let me finish the verse.
So whoever drinks from it is not of me, and whoever does not taste it is indeed of me. So basically the condition was not to drink from the river. And then he says, excepting one who takes from it in the hollow of this hand. But they drank from it, except a very few of them. Then when he had crossed it, along with those who believed with him, they said, there is no power for us today against Goliath and his soldiers. So this is about David and Goliath, basically. Nothing to do with killing babies here. Okay, but those who were certain that they would meet Allah, yes, those who were certain that they would meet Allah said, how many a small company has overcome a large company by permission of Allah, and Allah is with the patient. That's all he says. There's no mention of any killing of children. Has overcome a large company by permission of Allah, and Allah is with the patient. That's all he says. There's no mention of any killing of children.
Sorry, so Hashim is very, very offended in one day.
Are you going to show us?
You call Muta a divine law.
All right?
You call Muta a divine law.
God of the Bible kills babies.
I think that Jay, while he has admitted that the violence in the Old Testament is much greater than in the Quran, and these are his words, which I've written down as soon as he spoke them, he seems to think that the New Testament presents a different picture of morality, and we should guard against this. He brought me actually greetings from our good friend James White, and James White has written in his book, The God Who Justifies, on page 61, in response to those Christians who may think, okay, that was the God of the Old Testament, now in the New Testament things are different. In response, White has this to say, there is only one God, and the God of the Old Testament is identical in every way to the God of the New. So we cannot look at two different moralities here. Why is the New Testament then different? In his article on jihad in the Blackwell Companion to the Quran, the Jewish writer Reuben Firestone explains the situation in which both the Talmud and the New Testament were written. Here we're talking about the context. Now the context here was different. The New Testament and the Talmud were written at a time when Rome dominated, and there was no hope, either from among the Jews or from among the Christians, that somehow a political struggle will result in any victory. So a passive approach was taken. And this is particularly in page number 313 of the Blackwell Companion to the Quran, in which Reuben Firestone has laid out this case. And one can see this to be true. Jesus, according to the New Testament, was the Messiah who was expected to rule on the throne of David. So that the verse that was quoted about this says that God said to him, sit at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool. The imagery was that Jesus would sit in a political rule on a throne that was left vacant by David, and that God would have it such that Jesus would be resting his feet on the slain bodies of his enemies. It was to be a political battle, a military confrontation. But when that could not work, the New Testament writers, writing in a milieu in which they dared not be represented as the terrorists of their day, they wrote things like Romans 13 and 1 Peter, in which it is entirely pacifist. You submit yourself to the ruling authority of the day, do not resist. And this is why Jesus is represented in the Gospel of John as saying, my kingdom is not of this world. So this is a later rewriting. John, the last of the four Gospels, now takes the Messiahship and gives it a different meaning. It's not anymore about sitting on the throne of David in this life, at least not in the first coming, but when he comes back, the book of Revelation tells us what he will do. He will have a major confrontation with his enemy. His tongue itself will be of a sword, and he will slay everyone except the false prophet and the Antichrist, who will be thrown into the fire. Everyone else, according to the book of Revelation, will be slain by Jesus when he comes back and engages the enemy in that major battle. So the battle motif is present in the Old and in the New Testament. Christians are peaceful, but despite the Bible. And some Muslims are violent, but despite the teachings of the Quran. Thank you.